It's the Arch Advocate Show for Friday. Happy Friday, everybody. I hope you guys are looking forward to a good weekend. There's kind of a lot going on in the news. Hilarity is ensuing around Donald Trump. We're going to get to that. And tragedy, insanity going on in South Africa. And I'm going to give you some predictions about the future of South Africa. I will divine the future of Donald J. Trump on this episode. And as everybody knows, when it comes to my ability to predict the future, I stand 100% unchallenged, right? Everything I say, everything I've said has come to pass. For example, right, when this show started off, it was focusing directly on the cryptocurrency market, where I obtained the name the Crypto Prophet, right? Because I can see the future, see what's coming. Case in point, listener Todd Milligan, he's on vacation right now. Everybody knows that. Everybody in the Telegram group knows that Todd Milligan is on vacation. What you may not know, though, is that he is vacationing on a private island that he bought, right? And he got that money from, taking the predictions that I made about cryptocurrencies. You're welcome. You're welcome. But see, that's not the most amazing thing about this. See, there wasn't an island available. So he had to do like those folks in Abu Dhabi do. He had to have an island built for him. That's how much money Todd Milligan has made off of my predictions about the cryptocurrency market. He had to have an island made for him, all right? And even that is not the most impressive thing. You see, when you build an island, you've got to take sediment, like concrete and rocks and boulders and, that sort of thing. And you just need to dump it on the ocean floor to raise that floor up so that you can then build it. This is the thing. Todd Milligan, he had his island made, like the foundation, the bedrock, all Lamborghinis. That's right. He bought so many Lamborghinis that's what he made the foundation of his island out of. It's called Lamborghini Island. That's a fact, right? That's how much money people can make if they take my advice and, when I talk about the future. It's another case in point, man. You may have noticed that listener Fat Sacks, he's not been around for a little while. Well, the reason why is because he took all of the advice about cryptocurrencies that I was giving when the show was about cryptocurrencies, and he went and bought himself a mountain, right? Todd Milligan bought himself an island that he had commissioned to build. Fat Sacks bought a mountain. Now you might be thinking like, man, that's a lot of money. Like you would have to be balling out of control in order to afford a mountain. Now that by itself, it is impressive. But the most impressive thing is that mountain is pure cocaine. That's right. That's where Fat Sacks has been. He's been building his house on top of his mountain of cocaine. Anyways, look, when it comes to telling the future, I'm never wrong, right? So when I tell you about the future of Donald J. Trump and the future of South Africa, you better listen, man, because I'm always right. All right? That's what this show is about. It's about me talking and being right all the time, right? Now listen, we're looking at... Let's take Donald Trump, okay? Now, in the last couple of days, we saw the Manafort and the other guy. What's the other guy? Paul Manafort and Cohen. His lawyer is Cohen. And there's a lot of people on the right saying a lot of things. Right? There's a lot of people freaking out on the right, like our people. And I think that's slow down, people. I guess is what I'm trying to say. Slow it down, slow it down, slow it down. Now, let's take this step by step, all right? Calm down, right? Stop, look around, look at the landscape, right? Find out what your assets are, find out what your liabilities are. Is there a rattlesnake? Is there a gigantic hungry bear? You know what I mean? Like what is around you? Have situational awareness. Now remember, right? What are these convictions and these guilty pleas from Manafort and the other guy, Cohen? What does this stem from? Where did this all begin? right? And if you said, in your mind just now, if you said, oh, the Mueller investigation, ding, 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 correct. The Mueller investigation, that's where all this started. That's why Cohen and Manafort are where they are right now. That is directly linked and singularly linked to Mueller. Is it not? Was there some other investigative body at work that was going after Cohen and Manafort? No, it's Mueller. The Mueller investigation, which is getting dangerously close to becoming 2 years old, and that's significant. And I'll probably talk just real quick. The Nixon investigation took was 25 or 28 months, right? So a little over 2 years. And when you talk to liberals, they're like, "Oh, it took 2 years to get Nixon." Okay, by the way, Nixon was not impeached. Nixon was never impeached. Nixon resigned, right? There was, however, a president in recent history who was impeached, and he was impeached and not removed from office. So just, I don't want to go too far into that. But okay, remember, this is about the Mueller investigation. Manafort and Cohen, Mueller. Is it not? Okay, so now that we've gotten that out of the way, what was the Mueller investigation about? What were they looking for? What were they investigating? Can you remember? I mean, there's been so much, man. There's Donald Trump was going to start a war with North Korea, and MS-13 gangs are just hardworking children of God, and you know what I mean? There's just been so many distractions. Perhaps you may have forgotten. Maybe you forgot what the Mueller investigation was about, because it was about one thing, right? What was it about? Russian collusion. Russian collusion. That's what the Mueller investigation is about. That's what it's always been about. Now, how do you get, one guy who's been charged with tax evasion and bank fraud, right? That's Paul Manafort, right? And then other guy, Michael Cohen, he's alleging that the president directed him to commit campaign finance fraud. So not Russian collusion, and also not Russian collusion. Remember that. And why is that significant? Well, it's real simple, actually. Here, I didn't want to tell you this story. This isn't something I'm proud of, but when I served in the United States Marine Corps, there was something that happened that put me in a position where I came under what's called a general court-martial. Okay, so there's 3 levels of court-martial, and general is the highest, right? General usually means like General Foods, or in general, or whatever. It sounds kind of like benign. But in the military, in the Uniform Code of Military Justice, right? General, it's kind of like, how a general is the highest, right? Well, that's what general means in a court-martial. If you stand a general court-martial, that means everything that you're being charged with is a felony, right? Even, like, for example, I was charged, I had 5 counts on me. It originally was 4 counts. And I was facing 20 years in prison, a little over 20 years in prison. And I wasn't even 20 years old when those charges came down on me, right? And in fact, it was like a month before my 20th birthday. Because of the amount of stress I was under, there was one day when I overslept a little bit. I was very stressed out, and I overslept. My alarm didn't wake me up, and I showed up 5 minutes late to work, right? I overslept just a few minutes, and I showed up late to work. Now, in the military, there's no excuse to be late to work, right? If you have the flu, if you're crapping your pants, it doesn't matter. You have to show you have to be there for morning formation, right? And because I was not, that was a charge put against me. It's called unauthorized absence, or UA, right? But because I was already on a general court martial, that charge of being 5 minutes late to work automatically, because of the way the system worked, it went into that general court martial. Because if you're charged with anything while there's a court martial going on, it has to get lumped into that court martial. So immediately, me being late to work by 5 minutes was automatically a felony, right? So, and by the way, I was guilty of being late to work by 5 minutes. There was pretty much no disputing that. So think about this, right? There were all these other charges, and sometime I'll get into the story. Maybe sometime I'll tell you the whole story. Obviously I beat him. I was innocent. I went to court. It took 8 months. It was a big deal. And there's things that I could get really heavy into, but let me just digress. In that court case, I beat all the other charges, right? And because of that, the only thing left was the UA charge, right? So had the government, had the United States Marine Corps at that time, if they wanted to push the issue, if they wanted to be a little bitch and say, well, all right, you got away with all these other things, but we still hate you, so now we're going to make you go to prison, for 6 months or 8 months, whatever it was. We're going to make you go to prison for being late to work because we're spiteful little bitches, and we think that you got over whatever. They could have done that, but they didn't. And the reason why they didn't is because it would have been a sign of weakness to do that. You see what I'm saying? Like, the original case was about something else. They had me dead to rights on the being late to work thing. I was late to work. Nobody questioned that. I didn't plead guilty to it because it's like, I'm not going to plead guilty to a felony that's only a felony because I'm here in the first place, right? Now, the judge, I remember the judge at the time, he was, I never got to know him or anything, but he had his pinky finger, his index finger was missing the tip, right? The entire tip of it. And so when he pointed at people, it was with a stub finger. I remember that vividly, because when he was like pointing at my attorney and pointing at the prosecuting attorney, like, it was like, oh man, that's like a death finger. It was kind of freaky, but he dismissed it all, and the final day when the judgment came down, it was like, it's all gone. No, we're not going to throw you in prison for being late to work that one day, right? Because that's, what I mean? That's like that's what normal people do. That's what reasonable people do. It's like, well, we didn't get you on the other things. The only reason this thing over here is even there is because you were charged with all these other things, all that other stuff. Anyways, it would have been a bitch move, right? Because the charges that were put on me in the beginning were something completely different. Now, for obvious reasons, there's a very obvious reason why I didn't want to tell that story. That was a very traumatic time of my life. That was kind of like the first time in my life that I realized, like, oh, I don't have really any control over anything, right? Something happened, something else happened. The next thing you know, I'm being put on a general court martial where I'm facing more time in prison than I had living. You know what I mean? And the name of the case was the United States Marine Corps against, versus me. You know what I mean? Like, I was very stressed out. And anyways, looking at Donald J. Trump, right? So the investigation, the Mueller investigation, what was it about? What were they investigating? Were they investigating Donald J. Trump for the fact that Paul Manafort had some screwy paperwork a decade ago or 8 years ago, whenever it was? Was that what they were investigating Donald J. Trump for? Were they investigating Donald J. Trump to find out dirt on Manafort? No. They were investigating one, Donald J. Trump, for colluding, which, by the way, colluding is barely even a word. But they were investigating him to find out if he had been working with the Russian government to swing the election in the United States, right? Which, if it turns out that is the case, that would be very close to treason. Treason's a big word, but that would be really bad. You know what I mean? But again, Mueller investigating Donald J. Trump, nothing to do with Manafort and his crappy paperwork or the bank fraud. Which, by the way, the bank fraud thing, you're not allowed to lie to institutions to borrow money. The fact that Paul Manafort borrowed some money evidently under false pretenses, or what can be interpreted as false pretenses. But guess what? The dude never missed a payment, right? He didn't borrow money and then not pay it back. He didn't borrow money and then file bankruptcy. He borrowed money and he's been paying it back. So when they say bank fraud, it's like, well, maybe, did he say that? You know what I mean? Whatever. But my point is, it doesn't have anything to do with Donald Trump. And then here comes Cohen. Right, now this is where it gets interesting. So Russian collusion, right? The unwritten accusation was that our current president and former just regular old citizen, Donald J. Trump, who was a billionaire real estate mogul turned reality television star turned guy who sells steaks on TV, whatever. They were saying that Donald Trump got together with Russian agents, not Russian agencies, but actual representatives of the Russian government, so as to subvert the will of the American people and to tamper with our election process. That was the unwritten accusation, right? What do we have in Cohen? Well, Cohen says Donald Trump directed me to pay money to Stormy Daniels and to use campaign finance funds to do it. Okay, Stormy Daniels. That's what this has come down to. Mueller said Donald Trump worked with a foreign government that is on paper, hostile to the interests of the United States. That was the unwritten accusation. What do we have now? Porn star. Right? So you got charged with one thing, but you settled on late to work. You said that Donald Trump is an evil mastermind who worked with the Russian government to overthrow the seat of power in the United States. And what did you settle on? Porn star. You see what I'm saying? Do not fear what is going on with Manafort and Cohen and all that stuff. He's got this, the big charge was Russia. What are they settling on? Porn star. Don't lose sight of that, because what they're doing is a bitch move. It's a bitch move to do that. Now listen. Nobody is a bigger honk for campaign finance reform than me, right? Well, I take that back. There's people out there that are more vehement about it than I do, but there's 10 things that I can name off right now. It's like, listen, we have to change these things or else we're all doomed, right? We have to change the structure of lobbyists and the influence that lobbyists have over our politicians. The fact that we have politicians making $160,000 a year and are they have hundreds of millions of dollars. That is a function of lobbyists. That has to go. That has to go. That has to stop, or we are doomed. We're doomed. Nobody can withstand that kind of temptation. Nobody. Get me Billy Graham. Let's raise him back up from the dead. Get me, you know what I mean? Resurrect Pope John Paul. He was a good dude, right? Get me the Buddha. You know what I mean? Like, you cannot withstand. Like, if people are just throwing money at you, like, you can withstand it once or twice, but eventually it's going to wear you down. Campaign finance reform. Again, like, you've got all this money and there's all these regulations, and you know, and the whole thing is unfair, right? But it's again, it's just one of those things where it's like, man, this has to change. This campaign finance thing, it's all BS, right? Barack Obama got hit with what was it, a $375,000 fine for a whole bunch of different, it was like 60 different allegations of you know, campaign finance misuse. Nobody said anything, right? They just gave him a fine. I'm sure he paid it, and it was over, right? I think that's how it was. It was either they found $375,000 that was misused, or they found all the misuses and they just fined him $375,000. I don't remember, but the point is, Barack Obama misused campaign finances, and guess what? They all do it. Right? I was talking the other day about you know, my congressman Duncan Hunter. He's being charged. Oh, that's where I get that number 60 stuck in my mind. Duncan Hunter is being charged right now with 60 different counts of campaign finance violations. Flying into Italy, transporting his bunny on a plane for $600. You know what I mean? Like, this nonsense has to stop. But let's not, you know, let's not muck it up here. Like, yeah, it needs to stop. Yes, it should be a crime. Yes, anybody who's been accused of these crimes should be punished to the full extent of the law. I believe that, right? But what is the full extent of the law? Evidently, in the case of Barack Hussein Obama, who was president of the United States, it was a fine. Okay, well, if that's the fullest extent of the law, then great. If it turns out that Donald Trump did in fact misuse campaign funds, right? Then punish him to the fullest extent of the law. Give him what you gave Barry. But don't lose sight of the fact that this is, right, the Mueller investigation. What is it about? Russia. What are they doing? What are the charges now? Hooker. Right? Money that was paid to Stormy Daniels. That is the just epitome. It's like a big ball of dick move. Bitch move. Bitch. You know that you can't get anything over here, and so now you're going to the, oh, well, you were late to work one day by 5 minutes. That's what they're doing. And there's nothing to fear here, right? But I'll tell you something else, and I do mean that when I say, like, if in fact the president or my congressman, Duncan Hunter is my congressman, he represents the place where I was born and raised. He's my congressman. His father before him, my congressman. Right? They're like a legacy family. You know, they're decent people, I guess. I mean, I don't think that anymore, but like they've never done anything, you know, that I thought was over the top. But look, if he's guilty, it's like, dude, if you committed crimes that have to do with like if you're a public figure, I'm sorry, if you're a politician, if you do crimes like, remember when Marion Barry got caught doing coke and banging whores in a hotel room, right? Well, you know, that's not a and by the way, I'm not advocating for Marion Barry, but that's not a public trust. That's not in the sphere of public trust. You know what I mean? You going off and doing coke and banging whores, that's not, you shouldn't have done that. That's for sure. But that doesn't have anything to do with like misusing the funds that we gave you or misusing the power that we gave you, right? It just means that like, okay, well, now that we know that that's who you are, now we're not going to let you be in that office anymore. Strangely enough, after Marion Barry was done doing his prison time, they reelected that guy. So what does that tell you about the will of the people? You know what I mean? Like, how does that happen? How is it that people are so stupid? Remember the guy in Vancouver? Remember that? He was like the mayor of Vancouver, and he was like doing coke on TV or something. Like he was crazy, out of control, and the people loved him. And that guy was never accused of like, you know, doing business with, you know, the drug cartels or having people murdered or whatever. It was just like, man, you're an out of control party animal, you know. But you're a good mayor, so whatever. And the thing with Donald Trump is that, and Ben Shapiro said this, it's like, dude, you have to, Mr. President, you have to let your lawyers do your talking for you because you are screwing this up. Donald Trump goes on TV and says some things where it's like, dude, don't you understand that this is going to be used against you? And you're flip-flopping on things that you said before. Just be quiet. Just let your lawyers do the talking. Mr. President, please stop talking about this. But if you are going to talk about this, don't hide it, right? We have known since the 1980s that Donald J. Trump is a poon hound, right? He likes to smash ass. That's what he's about. He's about slaying poon, brother. And his whole life is about, we've all known this the whole time. Donald Trump, many years ago, he purchased the Miss America pageant. Why did he do that? Is it because he's some great altruist? Is it because like he just loves the institution of the Miss? No, buying the Miss America pageant was a pimp move. He bought a stable of young women so that he could be slaying virgins left and right. That's why he bought that, and we all knew it. Right? I didn't like it. When I saw it, I was like, oh, God, that dirty old man, he's just going to be banging 20-year-olds? Like, come on. But it's like, you know, whatever. Like, we knew that about him. The dude's on his third marriage, and every single one of his wives and girlfriends have been just hot. We've known this about him. We knew that going in. Mr. President, you can just say it. We all know it. And we don't really care. I mean, we do, but, you know, we wish you wouldn't do that. But it's like, dude, if you want to slay ass, okay. Just make sure that North Korea doesn't have nuclear weapons and we'll call it a draw. Right? Throw Hillary Clinton in prison and we will call it a draw. Build that damn wall and we will call it a draw. Because your sex life, right? Your inability to be satisfied at a certain point with the amount of poon that you're getting, everybody's got their struggles, brother. What you need to do, Mr. President, I'll tell you, you need to adhere to the Jim Jeffries philosophy of damage control. Jim Jeffries, the famous comedian, he's a lefty, but most comedians are lefties right now because they won't get work unless they are. But Jim Jeffries, he's really funny. I love his stand-up. He tells a story in his stand-up that like once he got a TV show and he was real famous, that some lady came to him, that he had been screwing in the past, and she says, hey, listen, you need to give me some money because I have a picture of you doing cocaine. And Jim Jeffries goes, are you kidding me? I have there's people out there that have pictures of me doing cocaine off of a picture of me doing cocaine. Like, what do you think you have, lady? Everybody has pictures of me doing cocaine, right? That's how you fix these problems. You say, you're damn right I paid Stormy Daniels off. I was running for president. And she, what's not embezzled, but, oh boy, old Petey's not remembering words. That's a problem. Extorted. There we go. Stormy Daniels had already received a payoff from Donald Trump. And then she signed what's called a non-disclosure, an NDA, non-disclosure. She can't talk about it. It's like, bitch, if I give you this money, you have to sign this thing that says you can never talk about this again. And it was like a couple $100,000. Not a lot of money. And she, once Trump really, once he got the nomination to run as a Republican, when was it? Like, she came out like way later and decided to break that NDA, which, by the way, that will come back on her. I don't think she understands what she's done there, but that's what you see what I'm saying. Like, she extorted this guy. Like, we all knew that. Like, when that news broke, it's like, oh, okay, so he paid her off. He had sex with her while he was married to Melania. Like, yeah, that's a dick move right there, but it is. We know who this guy is. That's who Donald Trump is, right? And nobody cares. So, Mr. President, like, dude, we don't care. Just quit. Like, don't make excuses. Just come out with it and be like, yeah, I was banging that whore, and there was that other whore I was banging too. Look, I got a hungry dick, man. It has to eat, right? I have to slay virgins, man. This is who I am. It's a problem, all right? I need to go to that class with David Duchovny, and Rob Lowe and those guys. Like, I got a problem, man. I love crushing ass. And because I've always been rich and I've always been powerful, I've always been in the media, like, there's a lot of ass that comes my way, man. I can't, what are you going to do? Sorry. But in the meantime, not sorry. Like, just admit it. And the whole thing goes away. Because none of us care. I don't care, Mr. President. And the thing is that, and again, predicting the future, the Democrats are horrible at this. I keep using this example, but it's just because it's a perfect example. The filibuster thing in 2013, whenever it was. The Democrats didn't want the Republicans to filibuster an idea that they had, some legislation that they wanted passed or whatever. And they knew that that's what was going to happen. So what they did was they used their power to change the filibuster rules so that the Republicans couldn't filibuster. Right? And Democrats were standing up and saying, you guys, you're being very short-sighted here. You're trying to change the law, right? The law of the land, so that you can do this one little project. But we're not going to be in power forever. We're not going to have the Senate. We're not going to have the House. We're not going to have the Oval Office. Like, eventually, the power paradigm will shift. And if at that time the Republicans want to do something and they don't want us filibustering it, they're going to use this law against us. Please look into the future. Think about what you're doing. Right? So what's the future of what's going on right now? It's like, oh, Democrats. So now you have a problem with campaign finance abuses? Okay. How about that? How about we start going after every Democrat politician and investigating every Democrat politician to find out what's going on with their money? You think that will work out well for Maxine Waters, who lives in a $4 million house that she bought a very long time ago? So, I mean, $4 million was a lot of money when she bought it, right? That crazy rodeo clown looking lady down in Miami, right? Let's look into everybody and let us then punish to the full extent of the law every time we find it. When I look at Duncan Hunter, right? It's like, look, this is probably, a Democrat attempt at, to undermine Republicans in California, and I'm fine. You know what? I'm fine with that. Like, Duncan Hunter, if you did wrong, you should be exposed and you should be punished. If you betrayed the public trust, you should be exposed. I don't care if you're a Republican. I don't care if you go to my church, which I do believe he does. Right? I don't care if you can be a follower of Christ and still screw up. Right? There's no perfect Christians. But just once you are voted in to represent the will of the people, if you betray the will of the people, then you should be exposed and you should be punished to the full extent of the law. So these Democrats, man, they're not looking into the future. It's like, what do you think is going to happen if you push this issue? We're going to push right back. We're going to say, okay, yeah, you got Duncan Hunter, you got him. You got Donald Trump. You think he's going to be thrown out of office for that? Oh, okay. But from this day forward, we are going to have a special unit, gonk, of people who go after, like forensic accountants who just do nothing all day except for look into where the campaign finance money has gone. Maxine Waters paid her daughter something like $700,000 or something like that to lick stamps and put them on envelopes or something like that. It was crazy, right? You think this is these Democrats? It's like, you think this is a big win for you? Why don't you look into the future and see what this does to you? How is it that you cannot see that the very next move is going to be us coming after your campaign finance records? You dummies. You should have left well enough alone. But, whatever. Again, I'm very happy that we don't have these legacy politicians like the Clintons. I'm glad that I am overjoyed that Hillary Clinton is not president of the United States right now. Could not be happier. Couldn't be happier that a filthy socialist who combs his hair with a balloon is not the president of the United States right now. Could not be more relieved. Couldn't be more happy. I've told you before, I was against having Donald Trump be that guy, but overall, because you remember, it came down to three people. It was either Donald J. Trump, Sanders, or Clinton. So out of those three people, I was like, I'll take Donald Trump 10 out of 10 times. No contest. It's easy. But now that he's in office, I'm very happy with his policies. I'm very happy with his politics. Right? But I was not on board to begin with. That being said, I am a fan now of Donald J. Trump. I will be voting for Trump in 2020. What I wanted to say all that to say this is look, that is true, and what is also true is I am over, and you need to be over the idea of giving these people a pass because there are a people. You can't. We can't do that anymore. It's killing our nation. Right? If my congressman, who I've been happy with the whole time, if he did that stuff that he's accused of, then he should be punished to the full extent of the law. If Donald J. Trump actually told Michael Cohen, listen, we're going to have to pay Stormy Daniels off, and by the way, I don't want you to use my money. I want you to use campaign finance money to pay her off, and I want you to be misleading about it in the paperwork when you fill it out. Because that's what's being alleged, by the way. I don't know if you know this, right? It's not a crime to pay off Stormy Daniels. That's not a crime. What they're saying is, the crime here is that, and this is what Michael Cohen is saying, right? They pressured him and he started singing. They pressured him more and he started composing. What Cohen is saying is that Donald Trump directed him and told him specifically, you have to use the campaign finance money and you have to cheat on the paperwork. That doesn't make a lot of sense to me. That doesn't, Donald Trump's a billionaire. You know what I mean? This is not, I don't understand. I don't think that anybody would do that. It doesn't make any sense. Here, I want you to break a law while you pay this girl off. It's like, here's a check. Here's my checkbook. Like, here, I'll sign it. You just fill in the numbers and go give her that money. Simple. That's what's being alleged. But, if that's so, if that actually happened, and they can prove it, which is a whole nother mountain of cocaine, if they can prove that that's what he did, then yes, he should be punished to the full extent of the law. And what is the full extent of the law? Well, let's go back to one Barack Hussein Obama and see what happened when he did the same shit. Right? Let's see what happened when he was found out for campaign finance violations. That would be the full extent of the law. Anyways, fear not. This is, again, as you're looking at this, it can be a little frustrating, it can be a little scary, like, oh, what if he gets impeached? Okay, remember, the Mueller investigation had to do with accusing the president of having a coordinated effort with a foreign government that is hostile to the interests of the United States, that he coordinated with that government to usurp the will of the American people and overthrow our elections. And what is the evidence that they have of that? About $160,000 worth of Facebook ads that was done by an agency, right? A private company, not the Russian government, but a company that just happens to be a Russian company, to create those Facebook ads, right? That's what they have at this point. So the fact that Mueller is using the porn star card, this is fantastic news. Means they're bitching up, right? They don't have anything, so they're going to do the bitch move. Oh, you were 5 minutes late to work? Yeah, let's go after that. That's what they're doing. Now, moving on. South Africa. Now, I've brought this up a number of times. I brought this up when the show was about cryptocurrencies. People misuse that word genocide. Genocide means that you're trying to exterminate a race of people, or like if there was a village of people and you wanted to kill all of them for the sake of just making sure that those people didn't exist anymore, that would be genocide, right? If you attacked a village and killed everybody because they were your enemy for whatever reason, let's just say you wanted to steal all their sheep or their oil or whatever, that would just be murder, right? But genocide is different, and it's being misused, but I'm going to use it anyways, right? Because it's that word genocide, it invokes a certain thing, that the invocation of that thing is what it needs to be going on here. In South Africa right now, they are taking land away from farmers, white farmers, and just kicking them off their land. And in a lot of cases, murdering those people. Excuse me. Now this is a big problem, right? Because leftists, they love that feeling of being virtuous, right? They love the feeling of virtuousness. However, feeling is not a virtue. Your emotions are not a virtue, right? Leftists have been saying, like, oh, white people, they owe all these things because there were some bad things that happened a long time ago, and now white people are the worst people ever. Okay, well, number one, no, we're not. When white people showed up to Australia, those people were cannibals. Those people, like, you should watch the Stefan Molyneux thing about that. It's horrific. White people showed up and said, hey, you have to stop eating other people. And they didn't do it willingly. We had to force them to stop eating one another. Right? In Africa has, some of those countries in Africa have literally the lowest average IQs of any other place on the planet. I've told you about Somalia, man. Like, when we were getting ready to go to Somalia, they were telling us, like, listen, these people, they believe that the cure, because Somalia at the time was the AIDS capital of the world. And the reason why they were the AIDS capital of the world was, and this is what they were telling us, was when people get AIDS, they believe that if they have sex with a virgin, that that's going to be the cure for AIDS. One of the things, though, is that in that culture, one of the sexual practices is they would have this powdered spice, that they would use on food and whatever, and they would put this powdered spice on the what's now being referred to as the front hole to absorb all of the moisture, so that the skin would tear, and the blood transfusion of intercourse would be like more guaranteed, right? So what's going on over there is these people, and by the way, that whole sex with a virgin thing, that extends all the way to toddlers and infants. So these people get AIDS, and then they'll go rape a baby and put powder on its vagina. That was happening in the 90s. It is still happening to this day. These people, many of these people, literally have a lower IQ than the world's smartest monkey. Do you understand that? What was it? Coco, the monkey that knew sign language, or ape that knew sign language. Literally, that monkey had a higher IQ than some of these people. That's what you're up against. So when these people take these farms away from these white people, for the only reason these people are losing their farms is because of the color of their skin, which is racism. See what I'm saying? Like leftist ideologies, that's why we can't have it. Because you're all over the map. You're full of shit. You're saying racism is bad, and yet people are being killed because they're white. And you say nothing? And you say, oh, this is good. This is repayment. Okay, well then you are now the racist. You're now the racist advocating for murder. You're advocating murder based on the color of somebody's skin. How many racists have you ever met that advocated for murder? That's who the left is now. They're advocating for murder. Now, let's predict the future here. Because by the way, we know what's going to happen in South Africa because it already has happened in Zimbabwe recently. What's going to happen is all the white farmers are no longer going to have their farms. Which, by the way, farms, that's where food comes from. That's where the food comes from, people. And then you're going to have a bunch of people who have very low IQs and know nothing about farming, and they're going to be in charge of the farming. So within, I don't know, a year, maybe a year and a half, you are going to see unprecedented levels of starvation and murder in South Africa. You know where the murder capital of the world is right now? Because there's a new one, right? In NASCAR, you know what I mean? Like when a race car like pulls into first place, that's what just happened. There's a new first place for a nation that murders people. It's Venezuela. Venezuela has now they're the champion. They're the #1 country in the world for murder right now. Right? Because that's what happens when people start getting hungry. Right? That old survival mechanism kicks in. And that is a gear that is stronger than your sex drive. It's stronger than anything. It is stronger than like when you're really very exhausted and tired and sleepy, and like your body's saying like dude, we have to shut down. Your survival instinct and your instinct to kill to preserve your own life, it's actually stronger. It's just in us it's been dormant for a very long time. But it's still there. And when that kicks in, you're going to see South African people murdering one another. And you're going to see starvation because the place where the food is made is no longer being tended to. And we know that because we can look at Zimbabwe, which just happened recently. The future of South Africa is starvation and murder. You can take that to the bank. It is August 24th of 2018. And old Petey's going to call for August 24th of 2019 for South Africa. Starvation and murder. That's what's in their future. Because you can see it. Because that's how these things always go. And why do they always go? Why do they always go this way? Why is it that socialism always goes this way? And everything, right? Socialism, we got to seize the means of production, man. It's the rich people's fault. Let's take away all of the rich people's things and distribute it amongst the poor. That's what's happening in South Africa. That's what's happening in Venezuela. And this is why socialism, it never works. Because what socialism does is it blames others, right? What Christianity does is make it so that the individual has to confront themselves. The problem with socialism is that you're trying to circumvent the human condition with government. People have greed, right? You, me, my 1-year-old son, right? It hasn't started manifesting yet, but eventually greed is going to come up. People have greed to confront. People have sloth to confront, right? We all, we all try to take shortcuts. We all try to get over, right? We all try to, find out some secret way of, getting around doing the work. That's called sloth. We all have pride. You know what I mean? We all have envy. We all have it. And you and I, as Christian people, or at least, like if you're an atheist, it's like, or at least people who live in a Christian world and are currently benefiting from, 1,700 years of Christianity spreading through the Western world, we have to confront these things in ourselves to make sure that we keep ourselves away from it. What's going on in South Africa and in Venezuela is when people say, it's not my fault, it's everybody else's fault. And when you commit to doing that, people start starving and dying every single time. Every time. That's why we must continue to confront these things in ourselves. It's also the reason why you must arm yourself. If you live in the United States, the United Kingdom, anywhere in the Western world, now we have it a little bit better in America than the rest of you, and I'm sorry for that. Not sorry for me, but sorry for you. Sorry that your government sucks so bad. But let me tell you something, you better get a gun. You better arm yourself because it's coming, right? The socialists, these people, these liberals, they are not going to just give up. They're going to keep going, right? These things, they have a tendency to play themselves all the way out. Venezuela is not going to be fixed by the end of this year. It's going to take many years and a lot more people are going to die. There are people living in Venezuela right now that will be dead by this time next year because of the system of government there. There are living souls right now that are going to be dead by this time next year because of either starvation or murder that are directly linked to Maduro and directly linked to Chavez. That's a fact. People are going to die, right? There are going to be people that die in South Africa. And I know you're probably sitting there like, oh, that's really profound. Yeah, I know. There's already been a bunch of people who've been killed. There's going to be more, is my point. And it's going to take a very long time because there's a lot of people out there who are cucks. You can see, there's people in Europe right now that, I saw it for myself when I went to Calais, the jungle there in France. women were going and allowing themselves to be raped by these African migrants. And it was this sickness, this mental illness that I could see in these people. That they felt they'd been taught their whole lives that their whiteness was evil, and that white people had been so evil to these people that they would go and allow these strangers from a place that is infested with AIDS and all kinds of horrific diseases, and they would just go and have sex with these people. It was very bizarre. That's who we're up against. We're up against the people who are so sick and mentally unfit that not only are they a danger to themselves, they are a danger to our way of life. And they gladly allow disease into their bodies out of some weird mental illness. This is the state of the world that we're in right now. You know, pretty soon South Africa is going to be calling on the United States for intervention. And guess what? We're probably going to tell them what we've been telling African countries for almost 3 decades now is, hey man, you people don't want our help. We came to Somalia to help you. You called upon us. You said that the warlords were stealing all the medicine and food and money that we were sending over there. And we came over to help you. And the very people that we were there to help were attacking us. We came over there and we told you, you can't be having sex with virgins. It doesn't cure AIDS. There is no cure for AIDS. There wasn't in the early 90s. You can't do this anymore. And those people, they just wouldn't listen to us. They would not listen to us. And when we went over to there to help them, they attacked us. The very people that we were there to help, they attacked us. And we were trying to tell them, like, no, we're here to help you. And they would attack us. So Bill Clinton, believe it or not, this is like one of the good things that I can say about Bill Clinton. There's a couple. Was that he said, okay, if you don't want us here, then we'll be happy to leave. See you later. We got the hell out of there. And now South Africa, who is allowing people to just murder people, innocent people, for the high crime of owning land and growing the food that everybody needs on it. They're being murdered and kicked off of their land. Eventually, they're going to call on the UN. And I hope on that day that when that call finally gets to the White House, I hope it's Donald Trump sitting behind that desk. And I hope he tells them to go F themselves. I'll tell you what we will do. We'll ship a whole bunch of guns down there and you guys can fight it out. And whoever the winner is, you have them call us when we're done. People of South Africa, you need to arm yourselves. Because murder is coming your way and starvation is coming your way. That is what's happening. You're losing your farmland, and the people that are taking it over don't know anything about farming, and they don't know anything about work ethic, and they don't know anything about self-improvement, learning new things, because they have a very low IQ. You're about to starve South Africa. You better arm yourselves. Oh, but it's illegal. No, you have the right to defend yourself. Well, not in this country. No. You are a child of God. You were born with the right to defend yourself and your family. In fact, you were born with the obligation to do so. And people of America, man, you know, I know that there's over 100 million of us who are armed. We need to pump those numbers up. Those are rookie numbers. There is bad stuff coming to us. It's going to be horrible and brutal, but the faster we can get through it, the better. Right? Do you want to have a long, protracted starvation period? I don't know if you realize this or not, but people of America, most of your food comes from the Central Valley of California. There has been a strategic plan to remove the water from the Central Valley of California in place for years. There are farmers that don't grow anything anymore in California because they don't have water. That's going to translate eventually to your local Vons or Walmart or wherever it is that you buy your groceries. It's coming. And there has been a plan in place to import people into our country who hate us and have no regard for our laws or our way of life. And they murder people. They come in because of the liberals, and then the first people they kill are the liberals. You would think that that's, that the problem would eventually take care of itself, but it's like, no, but then all you have is a bunch of people, strong people, who are well accustomed to murdering people, even people who would help them. That's who we're going to have in our country. There's over 20 million people in our country right now illegally. Nothing, you can't get, I mean, think about it like this. Like, think about if somebody tried to bring in a suitcase full of cocaine by, on American Airlines into the United States. It wouldn't happen. They'd get caught. Right? So a small little suitcase, you can't smuggle that into the country, but 20 million people can? No. There is a plan at work here. There is a plan, and it is working. There are 20 million people in our country who hate us and have no regard for our laws and have no problem killing us. And we have politicians who protect them. And they're saying, yes, rape me. Right? Come into my land and bring your disease and put it into my bloodstream through my front hole. That's what we're up against. We're up against the sick people, and the future prediction of that is pretty grim. A lot of people are going to get hurt. That's the show for today. Hey, if you want to support the show, go on to archadvocate.com, arch-advocate.com, and give me some money. There's Patreon, there's PayPal, whatever you want to do. Hit like, hit share, hit subscribe. That's a big one. Thanks for tuning in, and I will talk to you no later than Monday. How's that? Bye now.